Come here. Oh, come here. Baby. What is it? Baby. Come here. Come here. You want to be in the video? So I just made a video about the issue of, I guess, being transparent about your recording method. And I think that's the first time I've made a video about that, but honestly, I'm not sure. But I wanted to just talk about it anyway. But I mentioned in the video that there are advantages and disadvantages to both. So I now want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about the issue, or I don't want to talk about what your preference is. That's for the other video. Here I just want to say, let's talk about one-take recording, and let's talk about horizontally edited recording. We're not going to talk about vertically edited recordings, because as we already discussed in the other video, people that do that and aren't upfront about it are so we don't want to be like that. So our options are one-take recording or horizontally edited. Okay. So one-take recording, you're going to sit down, play the piece from beginning to end, and that's going to be the take that you use, right? Now keep in mind, if you want to do an edited video, and I've done this before, you can still do a one-take recording. Yeah? I mean, why not? So you can still do the audio in one take and then do a bunch of video takes. I did that. I did a project with my buddy, and we did one of my songs, and that's what we did. But the first thing we did was record the audio, and it was one take. And then we did a bunch of shots where I played with that to do the video. So if you want to do cool looking video or edits and cuts and filters and stuff, you can still do one take audio if that's important to you. But advantages to that are playing advantages. So if you study classical guitar in schools like I did, or you interact with the community, it's all on the spot. You know, you do live performances. When you play in lesson, you play the piece through, or you play the whole suite or whatever. It's all like that. If you go see a great player play, they're going to play for an hour or an hour and a half, and they're going to, they can play every single piece on that program from start to finish at an extremely high level. It's really amazing, really amazing. So an advantage to that is you're going to be a much better player. You have to be. If it's one thing to be able to play something, it's another thing to be able to play that thing in the middle of everything else when you get to it in the middle of the piece, right? It's one thing to work on a difficult passage and say, oh, I can do this, but can you do it when it comes up in the piece? That's something different. It takes more skill, it takes more technique, it takes reliable technique, and it can really teach you what technique means. Technique means it's there for you. Like, are you nervous? Did you forget what comes next? Are you sick? You don't feel good? It doesn't matter. Technique is like, I got you, don't worry about it. Just come back pretty quick, but I got you. That's what technique means. So you're gonna have to practice stuff longer, but you will develop more as a player. And when you can do something, you will be much more reliable in doing it. So if you get used to doing one-take recordings, sometimes I still really struggle, but more often than not, if the piece feels in good shape, I can sit down and I can knock it out before too long, because I'm not working to get something one time. I'm working so that every time I play this piece, I can get that, So I would say that's the biggest pro, and it's a big one. It's a big one. I think, even if you're a totally edited take person and that's all that you do, there should be elements of your work that, they should function as if you were going to do one takes. Like some elements of your technique practice or pieces that you know really well, because it's really beneficial. Even if you decide, I want to do edited because I want the best version, or I want it to sound such and such way, I really don't want to mess this part up. I think all those decisions are fine. But if you want to improve as a player, do at least some one-take stuff. Make yourself. I mean, I would recommend it. I would basically only do editing as a fallback or a special circumstance. That's kind of how I look at it. Ideally, I wish I could sit down and do everything one take. I think that would just say a lot about you as a player, right? But that also sounds really tough. So, but I would say that's the biggest benefit. It's going to benefit your playing. It's going to make you a better player. Some drawbacks are practice time, which I kind of already said. So one time I made an arrangement and I worked on it for 8 months. Okay. And then recorded it. That's a long time. Now you talk to some classical guitarists, that's kind of normal for them. So you can do that. You just have to get really good at throwing stuff way out there. These types of people, they're like, well, I want to play this program next year. So right now I'm already playing a program I've mastered. So I'm going to start working on these pieces that I'm going to play in 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 months. That's a whole different skill set. For many people, and I'm more kind of like this way, I would have trouble throwing stuff out that far. I'm more like, I want to do this project and I want to get it done. So I'm going to make an arrangement. I'm going to write a piece. You're not going to get to see a bath show, did you? It happens all the time around here. And then I want to get it done. So if I could, I'd do it in a week, but I need a lot more time than that. So it's going to take a lot more practice. I think another con is your recording quality is probably going to be more hit and miss, especially if you record a longer piece. For me, it's like this. I always have a certain amount of buzzes, maybe some missed notes with the right hand, maybe some squeaks that I wish weren't in there. And these types of mistakes, you know, on this take, there'll be like one here and here and here and here. On the next take, there'll be like one here and here and here and here. On the next take, there'll be like one here, one here, one, you know, they're in different spots every time. So I just have to say which one feels like my best. If I play a wrong note, that's got to go. I don't want that in the recording because I don't want to represent the music that way. If I miss something and it's not very clean, maybe. It just kind of depends. But it's going to be a little less pristine, probably. Now, maybe not for you if you want to work it to a certain level, but for me, that's how it turns out a lot of the time. There's just a little bit of give in that area. I don't think it's a big deal. If you've worked on it hard, I think the character of your progress still comes through. And I really do believe that about guitar playing, even though it's a hard thing to live by. If I lived by that more, I wouldn't be so worried about imperfections. So it's tough. But I do, I guess, really want to believe that. I believe that about other people. You know, the strength of your character comes through when you hear them play. So I guess for me, I hope the same thing happens. So that's one take. If you want to pump out a bunch of videos, it's not going to be very efficient. That's just the way it is. I'm not saying that pumping out a bunch of videos is a good idea either. But maybe that's one of the reasons why people don't do that. Is because it's going to be much, much more challenging. But much, much more rewarding. I try and do one take if at all possible. And I do, like, 95% of the time? That amount of my stuff is one take. So when I see somebody do one take, I'm like, respect. For real. On any level, I respect it. Okay, so now let's talk about horizontal editing. Pros of horizontal editing, I can think of a couple. You know, one is you can be sure that you get the more pristine version. This could apply to things like, you know, no buzzes, no squeaks, everything is clean. You wait till you get a section like that. It could also apply to musical things. Like on this one, I got the vibrato just right, so I'm going to use that for for that section, or the timing for this one was just, and that was exactly what I was looking for. Something like that. So in those types of areas, I mean, you can probably dial that in to kind of a different degree, especially for most of us. And that's nice. So you might feel like it's more representative of you at your best, in a way. You could also argue that if you were to sit down and play, you wouldn't sound that way. But if you're talking about recording and you want to sound, I guess, like the best that you can, I would say that's a big pro for editing in a horizontal fashion, of course. And then the other big pro I would say is saving time. So in that Slipknot arrangement I just did, I estimate I saved myself months of practice time. And that's kind of a big deal. So I like to put out content, but my goal isn't to pump out as many videos as possible. I don't do that video a week or whatever. I do videos when I can and when I feel like doing them. So a lot of people are on a schedule like that, and it's important to them. So that would be a big advantage to doing the edited recordings, because you're just not going to have to spend as much time. And you could even do little bitty edits, like the horizontal editing is like its own category in my mind, and vertical editing is a different category. So if there's one section that was super tricky, you could even just do a take for like that section until like you get that part or whatever. Yeah, it's still horizontal editing. So it's still not actually real. So so why not push it a little further? I mean, you could do that. Or you could do like, man, I have stories about this. Oh, I have a friend who edits, and people have turned stuff into him. Oh my God. And I made a point to not name names on this channel, on these videos. Sometimes I just think, oh my God, people are listening to something that doesn't even exist. Like this, like I heard the raw tracks and it sounded nothing like this, but it was all horizontal editing. This like somebody playing, screwing up, starting again, playing, screwing up, starting again, going a few measures further, screwing up, starting again, like that kind of stuff. So it's all horizontal editing. My buddy's a fantastic editor. He can make people sound unreal. Unreal. So yeah, those would be some pros for horizontal editing. Some cons. For me, I do think about, I just like things that are real. I was just talking to my sister earlier today, and we were talking about that. Because she was saying, like, well, I don't want to do this because that's not real. And I was like, I feel you. I was like, I'm the same way. I was like, I said, I respect what you're doing. Because I wouldn't want to do it either. Like, hey, can y'all behave? Hey, can y'all behave? Just be nice. Just be nice. But that's just something that I that's a priority for me, to be real, right? To be in reality. So that may be a con for you. It may not be. I don't think. There are certain people that doesn't mean anything to. So if it doesn't mean anything to you, then that wouldn't be a con. It wouldn't bother you. For me, when I do an edited recording, there's like an asterisk next to it. Asterisk. Like a little symbol. It's there, and I'm proud of it. It is a representation of me at my best in a way, but it's not as real. And if you were to, say, hey, come play some songs at my house, I wouldn't sound like that. I wouldn't even sound like this, the one take guy. I would sound worse than the one take guy is what I would sound like. So this is not super close, but that's a personal thing. A con that I'll mention that was really interesting, because I really, in my mind, I can really rag on people that do heavily edited recordings, even if they're only horizontal, because I'm just like, man, come on, man up, play your guitar, gut it out, whatever. But before I ever tried to do an edited recording, the first real edited recording I ever did was an arrangement that I made on the 7-string as well. I like to do edited recordings on the 7-string, I guess, of Metallica's Unforgiven. And I decided to do it edited just to save time. Also, the solo in the middle, I thought that was the main thing. I thought that's really gonna be hard to nail, and I wanted it to be really clean. That's cleanliness is important to me, because it's not about being clean. If I hear all these other noises, I feel like that's not what I meant to say. I'm not saying what I want to say with the instrument, with the music, with myself. That's not what I want to say. That's why it's important to me. It's not really about the cleanliness. So anyway, I decided to do an edited recording, and I was shocked to discover how difficult it was. So I will say that, and I didn't really say that in the other video. It was very challenging for me. I thought I would sit down and knock it out in 45 minutes, because I was like, you just do passes until you get one that's good. But what happened was, and this is the con, my attention to detail skyrocketed. And this is a whole thing that I'm going to talk about in a different video. When people talk about playing perfectly, everybody thinks that's like so great. And like it may not be even achievable for the greatest of players. But you play a few notes. If you don't like how they sound, when you start over. Or you listen to the take. If you get one buzz, well, I'll just start over. I don't have to buzz that note. And so like the expected level just went through the roof, and I was not expecting that. It was very difficult for me to do. And so after I made that recording, I had a little bit of humble pie, and I thought, all these people that you're hard on in your mind because they do edited recordings, it's actually more work than you thought, and they still have to sit down and do it. I mean, the guitar isn't going to play itself. They still have to get the take, I guess the same is true even if you do a vertical edit. But if you do that, I still think you're that doesn't change. So I would say I might put that under the con category in terms of if you're going to do one take with certain music especially, I just feel happy to get it. I did it. It's me at my best, and I didn't really screw anything up. And I'm happy with that. But this is different. It's like, is everything just as good as it can be? And it's just trickier. I experienced the same thing with the Slipknot Vermilion Part 2 recording, because that's also edited horizontally. The difference was I was expecting it, though. I didn't sit down and say, I'm just going to knock this out, and it's edited, so it's going to be no big deal. I knew, no, it's still going to be challenging. So it did take a little while, but I didn't feel any frustration or anything like that, because I knew this is still difficult, right? So depending on how you are and how much stuff bothers you, and I guess how much you feel, I want to do this because I want to be me at my best, which is okay to feel that way. That's not a bad feeling. That's a good feeling, I think. It can make the edited recording process kind of, you can just kind of pull your hair out about it a little bit, just kind of agonizing over every little thing. And then what's really helped me with that is I don't do too many little sections, because you do have to piece it together also in a way that sounds conducive. You don't want to hear the edits, and I would agree with that for the sake of the music. So I don't think anyone should make obvious edits in order to say it's edited. I think they should just say it in the description or in the liner notes of the album or whatever, just in the interest of transparency. But for the sake of the music, you just want it to sound clean all the way through, right? No little snippets or whatever. In fact, my buddy who edits, sometimes he'll send me stuff and he'll be like, can you hear any edits? Because he knows where they all are, and he's trying to say, I can hear them because I did them, but does it sound like one take to you? And most of the time I can't hear anything because he's so brilliant at it. But it helps me to not cut the piece into too many small chunks. Like I said, the Vermilion arrangement I think was 5 chunks. So that's like, anywhere from maybe like 25 to 45 seconds, something like that each. If you do too many small chunks, then lining them up is harder, and then I would just start to go crazy at that point. So I would actually recommend, take the sections, pick breaks where you can easily edit it together, like the start of a new section. Any phrase that comes in with a surprise, like, oh, here it is, that's a good place to start a new take, because it's going to sound like that anyway. It might sound different, or maybe the timing is a little bit off. So if you want it to sound like it pops out of nowhere, that's a great place to edit. I did that in the Vermilion arrangement. There's one part where it's like a chord kind of fades out and then comes in with a surprise, and that's where I started a new take. Or holding out something and letting it fade away. Of course, that's a good spot. But those can be some of the difficulties with the editing process. So anyway, just some pros and cons to consider if you want to do one take recording or a horizontally edited recording.